Seeing more black women in the media has always sparked my interest, and this girl was Tim, so I was I was already sold. But speaking more than representation, something I've always questioned is this notion of freedom, and how an artist can truly express it. It's more than just slapping black, gay, and non-binary characters on my screen. It's the story that you're telling, the message that you're presenting. What purpose does this serve? Kanye's been under a lot of fire because of his views on everything, and his response generally tends to be the same. I'm just trying to be free. I'm not trying to be told what it means to be black. Let me finish. That's kind of how Kanye sounds to me. I don't know.
We brainwashed out here, bro. Come on, man. This is a free man talking. Tell me I make every decision based off my color. The most racist thing a person could tell me is that I'm supposed to choose something based on my race. If that was the case, I wouldn't have never wore a pink polo.
And I genuinely do sympathize with that. But I think its efforts are misguided and sway into the territory of loud contrarian. We like to make jokes about artists and celebrities and the glorification of their views, and you know, it makes sense.
Who gives a fuck what Ja Rule thinks at a time like this, nigga? This is ridiculous.
Hey man, he set himself up. I can't even back this. That's what Ja thinks. Bro, stop. Nobody cares. But to argue that the voice of an artist has no bearing on the way people see things would be equally as ridiculous. Especially when there's someone as prolific as someone like Kanye. So we have to ask, what is artistic freedom, and what does it mean to be free? Love this show. Let's talk about it. Freedom is an abstract concept and is very difficult to define. Some would attribute it to wealth and comfortability, while some people would see it as a shared experience. And some of these niggas is just snakes. But for the most part, when we speak on this concept of freedom, we speak to the abstract concept of happiness. Mostly because our happiness is confined and constricted, either through our jobs, our work, our audience, and even our friends and family. Oftentimes when the disenfranchised speak on this concept, they're even referring to systematic oppression. But it's all encompassing this core idea of happiness. Is freedom personal, or is it collective? Kanye's fascination is with being free. He wants to be liberated. He doesn't like the feeling of being constricted. He doesn't like this idea that he has to conform to this idea of what it means to be black. And there's an element to that I genuinely do understand. But the irony of doing this is how the solution is to align yourself with a politician supporting a large amount of policies that genuinely don't benefit black people. Aligning yourself politically with someone who actively infringes on the freedoms and liberties of others for the sake of power and profit. The complete irony being that this idea of freedom that his campaign is advertised as is meticulously designed to control the freedoms of the poor and subjugate them to more suffering. Without getting too much into politics and what it means to be free, it certainly isn't defined by your political allegiance, nor is it seeking asylum in a hat that harkens back to Ronald Reagan.
Better run for the caption. Yeah.
Tuesday's the daughter of a politician running for president in the show. And one of the first things you see her doing is running away from home, running away for the chance to pursue her dreams. Carole is a refugee living in a basement, working part-time jobs to barely pay rent. She's pretty laid back, but just like Tuesday, she has a passion for music and performs in her spare time. Their common thread is their love for music, and they feel alone in this world where no one understands them, where no one will listen. They seek freedom in the ability to be able to express themselves and their struggles. Freedom and expression are huge parts of the show. Tuesday comes from wealth, and a brief conflict she has with Carole in the middle of the show is specifically about this. That purely from a financial perspective, Tuesday has nothing to lose compared to Carole. Tuesday goes back to working in a big house with a big room and money and whatever she could ask for. Carole goes back to working a bunch of part-time jobs that she hates and living in a basement. But to Tuesday, that isn't freedom. That isn't happiness. Her passion is music. Why?
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, yeah. Too motherfucking smooth, baby. You dig what I'm saying? Yeah.
The show establishes that a key part of music is expression. It's inherently tied to what Tuesday is so passionate about it, and why it's so important to juxtapose her timid, shy personality with this confident vocal performance whenever she sings. And this very stark difference is supposed to make something very clear. Music is a true form of expression. After silence, that which comes nearest to expressing the inexpressible is music. Carole and Tuesday takes place 50 years after Mars was colonized by humanity. AI is riddled around society, and because of this, it makes the need for human beings in day-to-day jobs very obsolete. Alba City is the product of that. It's to the point where this AI is specifically designed to create music based on the data and algorithms people will listen to. Without getting too political, it's very much this extreme capitalist society where businesses thrive and humanity is seen as expendable. Emotions, decency, privacy, it doesn't matter when there's money to be made. And outside a few characters in high positions of power, it's clearly demonstrated throughout the show that anyone under contractual obligation to these corporations is an expendable commodity. That ain't that extreme. That ain't that far off. But the interesting part of that is how the complete rejection of humanity in day-to-day life has created a culture without culture. This extends beyond the prospect of manual labor, but into this concept of art, effectively creating art manufactured for profit without any true meaning, art without soul, a world without culture. There's a character in the show called Desmond, and they talk about this idea of eternity and people being interconnected.
People are prone to change, and our lives are limited. But this moment, us meeting, is a small ring. And each one of those rings continue to link like a chain that goes on forever. I believe that's what eternity is.
Is this fascinating idea that we're all interlinked by the connections we've made, the things that we've expressed, and most importantly, the art that we've created. Something I've been told before is this idea that we're all insignificant in the grand scheme of things. This almost nihilistic perspective of choosing to fight and die for your beliefs, to having convictions in what you're doing in spite of potential hardships, because it doesn't matter. You're gonna die, and you're gonna be forgotten anyway. People have lived thousands of years before you and been forgotten. But I think this perspective incentivizes apathy to our convictions and the impact our lives, and by extension, our art has on people. Ignoring how the media impacts people's lives for a second, I think it's more than that. There's songs that came out decades ago that we're still sampling and listening to. There's art that came out centuries ago that inspired the very styles we see today. You know, there's profound things that you've heard people say that you have no idea where they even got it from. It could have been from your brother. That could have come from your brother's friend. That brother's friend might have not heard it from anyone, but had an experience where they were taught that. Or maybe they watched or consumed a show or a piece of media that showed them that and had an impact on the way they acted and the way they treated people. And when you start to look at life and the connections you've made like that, you truly begin to understand what Desmond is trying to say. You don't have Boondocks without Charlie Brown, Public Enemy, KRS-One, and Huey P. Newton. You don't have Huey P. Newton without the Black Panther Party. You don't have the Black Panthers without Malcolm X. You don't have Malcolm X without the Nation of Islam, and his dad, and Marcus Garvey, and Pan-Africanism. And suddenly these very faint threads from the distant past are indirectly informing what is made in the current day. Because regardless of whether or not that was the thought process, these things indefinitely played an impact in influencing the things and the minds of people before it. And that's how we need to see our actions in our reality. And that's also why, regardless of what anyone tries to tell you, history will always be a factor in our current reality. Man, even like, okay, let's even get personal for a second. Okay, Sade's 60. She released Sweetest Taboo in 1985. Bro, I wasn't alive in 1985. But I still listen to it. It's still living and breathing. Capital Steez died in 2012, nearly a decade ago, but I still listen to his music. His words still resonate with me, not only because of what he says, but how he says it. His style, his influences, it's all a reflection of him, and it has an effect on me, my perception, and in that sense, we are all linked. The Boondocks, not the reboot, not the show, the comic strip. I never read this thing while it was coming out, and it's so topical to the point where it's somewhat alienating, but still yet, I love reading it because it gives me insight into creators' thoughts during that time period. It made me really want to understand what Bush was doing and what the war on terror truly meant. This shit is 2 decades old, but it still had a profound effect on me in the way I see patriotic media. Even once it's passed, it's still living and breathing. Once again, we are all linked. Art is living and breathing, even after we pass, and it's our freedom to express ourselves through it which truly allows us to live forever. Not only because of the people you impact, but they'll go on to impact others based on your impact on them. And the cycle will continue, connecting us all. We are all responsible, we all have a part to play. This is something that Carole and Tuesday is constantly pushing, that even if barely anyone is following you, if what you've started and what you've done seems small, even if you're booed off stage and told to give up and go home, if your art is sincere and it's from the heart, it will resonate with someone. I mean, this is not even in the script. You know Crystal from Carole and Tuesday? Am I the one that thinks she's kind of like space Beyonce? I mean, that's kind of what she is, right? She's just space Beyonce. That's I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Narratively, this is something that Carole and Tuesday is constantly pushing, regardless of who's performing on the show, and even whether or not you even like them. Man, this girl's a creep. You're constantly seeing a different perception of reality with each performance. And while not all of them will resonate with you, some definitely will. There's tracks about unrequited love, there's raps about immigration policy and discrimination, there's a song about your place in the universe, there's a song about fucking bullshit. They've got their bases covered. And it's because everything is so stylistically varied, it gives such an introspective look at the characters specifically. I don't need a backstory for Crystal and her ex, because the song says everything. Once again, it's all feeding into this point about us being interconnected. You always have to see life from this perspective that we're all interlinked, because it forces you in a position where you're forced to recognize it's important to let yourself be free and express yourself. You have to believe that you are something greater than what you are. And I know that can sound corny and played out, but man, like, the Boondocks is about a 10-year-old radical socialist. Nobody asked for that, but it exists. And there are thousands of people across the globe that identify and resonate with that character somehow. The narrative that Carole and Tuesday is pushing is that music is eternal. Even without words, it expresses so much. This is personified even through the first time Carole and Tuesday meet. Carole isn't a lyricist, but still yet, Tuesday understands exactly what she's trying to say. There's clear episodes that make reference to the exploitation of the music industry, and how contractual obligation and interference can ruin the sincerity of music. There's references to the distortion of music and censorship of musical vision, where bigotry and monetary gain is normalized over humanity. It's really exploring this corporate stranglehold on artistic freedom. Make no mistake, Carole and Tuesday is thematically driven by this desire to be free. Freedom to express yourself. There's a whole thing about immigration in the second season and how Tuesday's mother is playing to patriotic people of Mars and their disdain for refugees on Earth. This is a spoiler, but it's obvious, so I'm just gonna say it. There's a bombing of a building that a politician is indirectly connected to, and she uses it as a vehicle to blame refugees and play to these patriotic people from Mars. Like, man, it's so on the nose. I'm not gonna say it, but
I really and truthfully believe that George W. Bush is somehow involved, either directly or indirectly, in the attacks on New York City on September 11th.
It's so similar. It's not even funny. I ain't gonna lie. We're led to believe in this era of YouTube and content creation that our media still isn't controlled. Oh, how wrong you are. It's done in very subtle and insidious ways. Carole and Tuesday explores this concept towards the end of the show. They want to do this big statement with a bunch of artists in this turbulent political climate. But some of the artists don't want to do that shit because it might alienate their audience and cut into their money. There ain't no money in trying to save the world.
And they'll have these discussions and people go, oh, right. Like the White House is really calling people, telling newspapers, don't run this story. They are. The White House calls newspapers, the White House calls musicians. Are you gonna put a video out? Nah, we don't think you should do that. Don't get it twisted. It's that controlled. Everything you see is there because someone wants you to see it.
Even YouTube, there's a list of things that you can't say on YouTube. And yeah, you could say them, but you won't get paid as much, and the algorithm definitely won't push your videos. Yeah, you could talk about this, and this, but why would you? It's quietly banned and no one will see it. So even if you did want to talk about the war, even if you did want to talk about specific LGBT issues, even if you did want to use your platform to reach people and say something, there is no incentive to, because no one will see it and your channel will die. You watch YouTube channels that are afraid to say fuck because they know it will cut into their revenue. Oh, why do I do it? Oh, I'm young and stupid, so I don't really think things through. And eventually, you have a bunch of people who look, talk, and act the exact same way because instead of embracing their identity and expressing themselves, they're playing to an algorithm of data. That's the world of Carole and Tuesday and how it intersects into our own. And I haven't even gone into Angela and Tao. Angela's dealing with the contemporary struggle of a child actress trying to maintain relevance, and Tao focuses his efforts on AI to create instant hit music based on data and research. And Angela is constantly trying to reconcile herself to this AI machine that the industry can spew out songs with for the sake of relevance. The irony being that she rejects not only her well-being but her humanity in the process, which is the very thing that Carole and Tuesday are praised for expressing in this technologically advanced world. It's why their music resonates with so many people. And I love Angela, she's cool, but that whole element, I think this show is gonna age really well. There is this almost hyper-masculine status quo, this whole facts don't care about your feelings mindset. And this world thrives on that commodification of humanity for profit. But I've always been very critical of this mind frame because it implies that sensitivity and being comfortable with your emotions, aka the things that make you human, is unintelligent. There's no difference between calling someone passionate and calling someone emotional, but one is a compliment and the other is designed to undermine your point. Again, the mindset is meticulously designed to defend the status quo. And ironically, it not only detaches you further and further away from humanity, but your rejection of your own being makes you look stupid in the process. Carole and Tuesday is incredible. It's so ambitious in what it tries to do. There's a song in every episode, and man, there's so many different styles. I guarantee there's gonna be something in this soundtrack for you. There's a cynical part of me that believes this is all just one glorified album advert, and if it was, I mean, they won, cause fuck, man, like, I don't know. It goes without saying, but there's such a wide range of diversity in this show. There's casually black, gay, and non-binary characters in the show, and it's treated completely normally. It's not pretentious about it, and specifically Desmond, this character is done so well, and their whole perspective on the world is really fascinating. And every time they're on screen, it's really solid. There's some really solid episodes of this show. Like, you'd be surprised how much I like Tuesday. There's this episode where she falls for this journalist and gets her heart broken, and it's just sad. Like, and I see the title when it's Love is the Only Thing That Can Break Your Heart, and it's presented so well because it's a misunderstanding, and Carole comes to comfort her in the rain, and it's just, oh, show's really good. Day by Day, Fred's, Polly Jean, man, there's so many good songs. Gun is basically Space Dandy, and that's why I love him. And in season 2, Tao has a really cool episode, though I think some of the twists towards the end are a bit questionable, but you know. There's an element of social commentary in this show, covering topics such as the media's effect on police brutality, but it never goes as far to be pretentious about it. It's all really about this creative journey of Carole and Tuesday, and them recognizing that their music can be used for something greater. Using their platform and expression to help people, and that's truly what I believe the heart and message of Carole and Tuesday is. To recognize that we're all connected and there's value in expressing yourself. Not only for yourself, but to empower communities of people and channeling your talents for the purpose of helping people just like you. To not play to an industry or a system that doesn't value your humanity, leaving you a broken mess of your former self for the sake of profit. Your happiness, insecurity, your sadness, and even marginalized struggles, it's all healthy, and it will reach someone. Man, even if I'm to speak to the black community directly, I know that comfort in communication and expressing ourselves is something that we do really need to work on. I'll say it again, your freedom is not defined by your political affiliation to a racist war criminal. If your definition of freedom is straying away from consensus, just because it's consensus, and you know, because it's really obvious, then you're not truly free. You just come off as a contrarian with a big ego. And it doesn't take a high level of understanding to deep that being encouraged to not support people that don't have the best interest for minorities isn't synonymous with policing blackness. Carole and Tuesday tackles these issues with flying colours, and it's absolutely worth your time. The characters are endearing, the music is catchy, and it's made by Watanabe, so I don't even know why it took you so long, to be honest. What you even just watch the show. If you haven't watched Carole and Tuesday, do it. It's on Netflix, and hopefully it will get a DVD release sometime soon. Following Carole and Tuesday is not only a reminder to all of us to use our voices to speak our reality and fight the norm, but honestly a truly breathtaking experience that shows us what it means to be an artist. To be sincere, honest, and free. This has been Operation Black Steel. Stay real.